Hello and welcome to Quarantine Cooking. I'm Claire and this is the show where we can all cook together separately. Today is a special springtime holiday edition. We're going to be making Lebanese Maamoul Cookies, a refreshing melon mint salad, and a tie-dye green goddess dip.
I took a look in, joy of cooking, joy of cooking, Ohio, Ohio. If I'm not mistaken, the answer's bacon, the answer's bacon, Ohio, Ohio.
We're going to begin by making our delicious buttery shortbread crust for the Maamoul cookies. And Maamoul is traditionally served throughout the Middle East, whether it be for tea time or in this case, to celebrate the end of a fasting period. Like Ramadan, they would serve it at Eid, or Lent, they would serve it at Easter, like my mom always does. So we're going to begin with 2 3/4 cup of semolina flour, or the kind of flour that you would make pasta out of, and 2 3/4 cup of farina, or cream of wheat. Then 1 cup of extra virgin coconut oil, and 1 1/4 cup of vegan butter. I like Earth Balance brand. This is all melted, just to simmering, and we're gonna rehydrate our flours overnight to begin the Maamoul journey. So for our Maamoul dough, we have our semolina and our farina. And then to plump and rehydrate the grains, we have our butter and oil mix. You want this hot because it'll help absorb it into the flours. And you just want to mix this all by hand till it's a nice even consistency. Okay, our dough's looking good. You're looking for about the consistency of wet sand, so you can kind of pinch and feel. It's gonna be a good stress reliever too. Just wanna make sure that there aren't any little dry bits hiding there at the bottom. All right, and kind of pat that all down. And then you want to cover this with plastic wrap and leave it at room temperature overnight. I know that it's hard to wait overnight when you're in the mood for good cookies now, but I promise it'll be well worth the wait. So let's wrap this up. And we'll get back to it tomorrow. Now for our melon mint salad. I'm using a variety of melons. You can use whatever you have on hand or whatever is easy to get. I really like these colors for springtime: honeydew, cantaloupe, and watermelon. And I'm going to be using a melon baller to make those pretty little pearls. And then just a light dressing, which I'll show you how to make now. About 1/2 cup or more of fresh mint. Save a couple whole leaves for garnish at the end. 1/4 cup of fresh lemon juice. 3 tablespoons of rum. 1/2 inch of ginger, so about a tablespoon fresh chopped up. And 1/4 cup of honey or agave. And this salad is a great just afternoon meal to have. Usually on Easter we have one big meal, and the combination of the dishes that I'm going to show you today will be that perfect afternoon tea or morning brunch to accompany maybe the big ham or whatever you're going to have. And then a pinch of salt. I'm gonna blend this up. And I like to leave some integrity in our mint leaves. This got pretty pulverized, which is still beautiful, but having the little flecks of green with the pinks and the oranges of our melon looks really nice. All right, set this aside and I'll show you how we're gonna make our melon pearls. Now we have our 3 gorgeous melons, and I'm going to be using the melon baller to measure out about 6 cups total of fruit, beginning with our honeydew.
بكتب اسمك يا حبيبي على الحور العتيق تكتب اسمي يا حبيبي على رمل الطريق بكتب اسمك يا حبيبي على الحور العتيق تكتب اسمي يا حبيبي على رمل الطريق بكرة بتشتت الدنيا على القصص المجرحة بيبقى.
Okay, so we have our beautiful melon pearls, and I'll show you how to compose your salad. You can just take a little bit of each color, you know, artfully arranging. You could even have different layers of colors in like a parfait glass. Be beautiful. Getting one or two perfect pearls on top just for display. All this melon smells so delicious. This is really the best kind of summertime salad. You could even freeze this in individual cups and have little icy melon popsicles. Wow, that is just gorgeous. Now we have our mint dressing. You can just kind of drizzle it on, give it a little stir. Fresh mint tends to rise to the top if you blend it into a dressing, so just give it a little stir. Drizzle some of it on, and then if you're going to be serving this the next day or in a couple days, I would wait to put the dressing on until right before serving. And a couple of our reserved mint leaves for garnish. And it would look really lovely if you have fresh lavender or anything in your yard. That flavor of the lavender would go really well with the mint as well. And then when your salad's all done and all those delicious melon juices blend with your dressing, you could even take that salad yum yum leftover and pour it over ice with some club soda or sparkling wine or something. So there's our gorgeous melon salad. Now for our green goddess tie-dye dip. We're going to begin with 1 cup of cashews, mine are in pieces, raw, and 1 cup of coconut milk, or soy milk, whatever you have on hand. And if you don't have a high-powered blender, I recommend soaking your cashews in warm water for about 30 minutes or an hour. 1 tablespoon of tahini, sesame seed butter, 2 cloves of garlic, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, and let's blend this. And the lemon juice and apple cider vinegar kind of create just a lift and a tartness similar to like a aged cheese. So it kind of adds complexity to our dip. Right, And just check. Sometimes it takes up to 4 minutes to blend this for a very smooth texture, which is what we want. This looks pretty good. Cashews are just amazing. I love them for pasta sauces or for any kind of salad dressings. In this case, a dip. Just the creamy texture when it's just blended with water is just incredible. All right, a tablespoon of nutritional yeast, or vegan slang, nooch. 1 tablespoon of capers. Just a pinch of sugar. 1 tablespoon of miso paste. This is red, but white or yellow miso paste is great too. And that'll be the umami kick that we get in our dip. Kind of all rhyme. And about a teaspoon of salt in the end, but we'll start with just a half and give it a taste. Couple grinds of fresh pepper. And give it a whirl.
بحكي عنك يا حبيبي لأهل الحي.
Now, the tie-dye part of this dip is that we're going to be saving a third of each step. So we're going to begin with the white swirl of tie-dye. But first, let's give it a taste, see if it means anything. Wow, that on pasta would just be like an incredible Alfredo sauce. All right, so this dip, it makes about 2 cups at this point. So we're going to be pouring out around 3/4 of a cup, more or less. That's good. Now, for the green of our goddess dip, we have 1/4 cup of chopped chives, fresh. 1/3 cup of basil leaves. And 1/4 cup of fresh parsley. And you can really use any combination of herbs that you have on hand. Just fresh, floral, just will lift and make everything really yummy. And 1 green onion chopped. Again, give it a whirl.
تحكي عني يا حبيبي لنبعة المي.
Now this is definitely a spring green, kind of matches my dress. And then next of our tie-dye painter's palette. Again, about 3/4 of a cup, more or less, maybe a little more. And then the final color is going to be a vibrant green. So we're adding 1 teaspoon of spirulina powder, which spirulina has mega antioxidants and is actually a micro sea green. So health benefits as long as you're wanting to hear it, I'll be telling you about it.
ولما بيدور السهر تحت نادي المساء.
You may want to scrape down the sides in your blender because there is a little bit less liquid, so your blender's like mine, it's just a little help. As you can see, our color is now getting to be emerald green, and we're going to swirl all these together and garnish it with fresh spring flowers and herbs. Give it 1 more whirl for a nice, even, vibrant color.
يحكوا عنك يا حبيبي وأنا بنت ساعة.
All right. Portion this out. And let's tie-dye. So here we have our tie-dye dip set up, our painter's palette of colors, and some beautiful adornments from the garden. I'm going to begin with our white dip, and this is a little thicker, so kind of pour it on the side. And although it's thick, you do want to work fairly quickly because eventually it will spread. But right now we just want to have about 3 even circles of our different colors of dip. And then you can kind of keep continually building them up and then save a little of each color for the end. Because this is where you get to have fun. If you have kids, this might be a great thing. You can give them each a different little plate and they can use veggies to make a painting. And then it's a healthy and fun activity. A little more. Just like that. I think that looks pretty beautiful. Okay. Now I'm going to begin with a chopstick and just kind of gradually edge each color into the other.
بيحكوا عنك يا حبيبي وأنا بنت
Now this can be a vegan version of Easter egg dyeing. I have to say I think the dark green is my favorite.
هديتك مزهري لكن تداريها ولا.
And if you're serving this, just clean up the edges a little bit. And now let's put some of our garden garnish. Parsley, sprinkle around. White borage flowers would be really beautiful. And some bit of basil. Maybe on the side. Now, I don't know if any of you ever watched Bob Ross, but that's what this is reminding me of right now. Just a happy little dip. Like little rabbit ears. Some of those guys over here. Sprinkling of chives. And we have 2 beautiful little chive flowers just about to bloom. For a little teeny kiss of purple. And then to finish it all off, a beautiful white pansy. There you go. Easter tie-dye green goddess dip.
واسمي بيمحى واسمي بيمحى.
The beginnings of our Maamoul dough have sat overnight. And to that we're going to be adding 1/3 cup of water mixed with 1/2 cup of coconut milk. And I've heated this just to simmer, turned the heat off, and added 2 exotic spices. One is mahlab, which is the pit of a cherry tree that's native to Iran. And then 1 teaspoon of mastic, which is a tree resin that grows in the islands, in the Greek islands. And I let this sit and cool to room temperature. Now to that we're going to be adding 1/2 tablespoon of dry active yeast and 1 cup of sugar. And I'm just going to stir to help dissolve the sugar and activate the yeast. The first time I ever made maamoul, I was very terrified. I think I mentioned earlier that my mom always makes maamoul every Easter. But one year she was hiking on the PCT and wasn't going to be back until Easter Day. So the duty of making this very special cookie to our family fell upon my shoulders, and I just knew that there would be no way that mine were going to be as good as my mom's, and I would fail and everybody would be disappointed. But then I remembered that it's also just a cookie, and it just, like all baking experiences, it's just a matter of trying it the first time, getting your technique, and enjoying it. So after poring over cookbooks and my mom's recipes, I made my first maamoul, and it turned out pretty good, and my mom got back from the PCT and she was very proud and happy. I'm sure everybody after hiking that long would be pretty happy with whatever kind of cookie you make. Okay, so then we let this bloom for about 5 minutes, and we'll add the rest of our ingredients. Our yeast mixture is sat for 5 minutes, and now we're going to add 1/4 cup of rose water to our mixture. And if you haven't used flower blossom waters in your cooking before, to maybe accustom your palate to the really amazing exotic perfumes, you could try adding like 1/2 teaspoon to your lemonade or something like that, because they just are really an underutilized, really fun way to brighten up your kitchen and your culinary repertoire. Now 2 teaspoons of vanilla and 1/2 teaspoon of fresh ground fennel. Give that a stir. And we're going to add this to our butter and flour mixture. The combination of the mastique, the mahlab, and the flower blossom water, it's very exotic, and it just reminds me so much of my mom baking. Then we're gonna get in there and mix this up before we add our final dry ingredients. So you're gonna wanna kind of pinch until everything is like really wet sand. Kind of breaking up any of the lumps left over from the semolina and the farina. Looks just about right. Like wet cement. All right. And we're gonna add 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And finally, this is powdered coconut milk. You can use regularly powdered milk or powdered soy milk. I find that the coconut milk and the fat content of it always just goes really well in baking, so that's why I often use it. Again, I'm gonna mix it, and you want this to just be mixed. No over mixing, because we don't want to start to develop the gluten in the flour. That will make the outside of your maamoul too tough. And then I'm gonna finish up mixing this, cover it, and set it aside for 1 hour. Then I'll show you how to make the fillings. We're gonna make 3 different fillings for our maamoul. To begin with, my personal favorite, pistachio. then walnut, and finally the most traditional and the sweetest, date. So for the pistachio, we have 500 grams of chopped raw pistachios. It's about 2.5 cups. 1/3 cup of sugar, 1/4 cup of honey, and the honey in there along with the maple syrup that I put in the walnut, it just helps keep the nuts moist after baking the cookies. 2 tablespoons of rose water, and then 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And we're just gonna grind this up until it just starts to come away from the bowl of the food processor, because we're gonna be forming little balls. And that looks just about right. We still want a little bit of texture. Always just feel it. This is getting just about right. Maybe a couple more blends. And the best part will be licking your fingers in the end. Okay, now for our walnut filling. We have 500 grams of walnuts, walnut halves, and they're raw. 1/3 cup of brown sugar. 1/4 cup of maple syrup. 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. And 2 tablespoons of orange blossom water. It smells so lovely. And again, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And again, we want that paste that we could roll into a ball, so just blend it up. Now for our date filling. I have 500 grams of pitted fresh dates. Now, I really recommend pitting your own dates or getting date paste. When you get the already pitted ones, sometimes they can be a little dried out. It can be a meditative practice to pit dates. Ooh, getting sticky. 3 tablespoons of coconut oil. 1/2 teaspoon of fresh ground cardamom. And 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. And then the secret weapon that I learned from my mom, 1/4 cup of whiskey, bourbon. And 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then chop this up. I like to leave a little texture for the dates. If you do have dates that are a little bit tougher or dry, then you want to soak them in warm water for about 30 minutes, drain them, and then put them in your food processor or food grinder. So there we have our 3 fillings all ready to go. Our dough is just about ready to be rolled, and I'm going to show you how to press and bake our maamoul. So for portioning out our dough and our filling for the maamoul. I'm getting about a walnut size amount of dough, rolling it in a ball and lightly covering it with flour. And then for our fillings, we're going to be rolling just a slightly smaller little pearl. So comparatively speaking, so we have the outside and the inside. There we go. We have our setup, all of our dough, all of our filling. So now we're ready to make our maamoul. So our cookie making station is all ready. We have our oven preheating at 350 degrees and an oven rack positioned in the middle. And the very special part of maamoul are the maamoul molds. And all throughout Lebanon, families collect these to have their signature cookies on display. Let me show you the technique on how to make these beauties. We're going to take a ball of our dough, and you'll learn when making maamoul that, you know, humidity and flours and everything vary, so you may have to add a couple tablespoons more water or milk or a little bit more flour. So we're going to roll our dough ball in flour and then make a little basket to set our filling in. Just using your thumb to create the depression and holding it softly but firm in your hand and working the sides of the dough up. Kind of just gently till it's all, it should be about 1/8 of an inch thick or less. So it looks good. And then we're gonna nestle, let's start with our walnut. So nestle some of our walnut filling in there and then just gently start to close the gap at the top of our little nest. And now if you don't want to get a maamoul mold, or you just kind of want to go the easy route, your cookie would be all done just like this. You could even take a paring knife or some toothpicks and make a beautiful design so you can tell which filling is in which cookie. But this is the fun part. It's about to get loud. So you press your cookie into the mold, making sure that the dough is going all the way to the bottom. Then we're going to be hitting the tip of the mold onto our cutting board. And there we go. So if you have people in your house or animals that are sensitive to sound, you may want to tell them to go to their room while you're making your cookies. Turn the music up and have fun, and I'll show you how to make the rest.
Imagine a view
All right, our beautiful date, pistachio, and walnut maamoul are all molded and ready to go in the oven for 12 to 17 minutes. And keep in mind, these go from perfectly cooked to much too dark in the blink of an eye. So keep a watchful eye and a keen nose towards the end of cooking. Now, usually when you're making maamoul, it's kind of a marathon. If you're gonna dedicate the time and the ingredients, you make a lot. Plus, a lot of the time, when Middle Eastern people get together, it's serious. A lot of them and a lot of dancing, so you need your energy. A perfect pairing with maamoul is Arabic coffee, and I wanna show you how to make it. Beginning with 4 whole cloves of cardamom. Want to kind of just break them open. You can also use the side of your knife. And you don't need to completely crush them. We're just wanting to expose the little fine black grains. So then put those in your Arabic coffee pot, which is called a rakwi. And then just cardamom is the traditional way to make it, but I like a little slice of ginger. Then you add 2 cups of hot water. Sugar to taste, so maybe start off with a conservative amount of sugar just in case if you're serving guests that they like their coffee black or just lightly sweetened. My general rule of thumb is a tablespoon of finely ground coffee per cup of water, and then about a teaspoon of sugar. This is 2 tablespoons of finely ground coffee. And you just have that sprinkled on top. We're not going to stir it yet because this creates the seal that infuses and makes our dark, luscious coffee. And I'll show you what to do over at the stove. So on a medium flame or medium heat for electric stoves, we have our coffee undisturbed, creating that lovely seal. And just when you start to see simmering around the edge, just like that, we're going to give a gentle stir. And then we're going to wait, and when our coffee comes up to a boil, we're going to take it off the heat and stir it for 30 seconds. Coffee off the heat, stirring 30 seconds. I think a chopstick is helpful because the rakwi has such a small opening at the top that in this way you can really make sure you're getting down in there and agitating your spices and making this infused good afternoon pick-me-up. Okay, and we're going to repeat that again. Medium heat. And wait for a boil. Take it off the heat. Give it another stir. And we're going to boil it one more time. But then after that, we're not going to stir it. We're going to let it sit for 1 minute so all the coffee grounds sink to the bottom. And then you just have the delicious goodness to pour off the top.
سمرة وحليوة ترقص بالعيد شفتها وحبيتها في بورسعيد سمرة وحليوة ترقص وتعيد.
Our mamoul's all done, hot out of the oven. And this is the crucial part. You put a nice sprinkling of powdered sugar on the nut cookies when they're nice and hot. And you just take a fine sieve and put your powdered sugar in and just tap it with the side of a spoon. And you put the powdered sugar on hot because then it soaks into the dough and creates a nice layer of sweetness, and it looks beautiful.
سلام سلم سبحانها تقول يا سلام سلم بدعي له من قلبي يبارك ويزيد عقبال كل الأحباب في بورسعيد بدعي له من قلبي يبارك ويزيد.
Our springtime dishes are all done. Our green goddess tie-dye dip with a crudite bouquet, our melon mint salad, and our delicious Maamoul cookies with a side of Arabic coffee. And to top it all off, perfect for any springtime celebration, I have a sparkling wine from right here in Oregon by Montinore Estates. Now, if you were my husband, you would just shoot this right off, but I recommend when you're opening a sparkling bottle to hold a towel over it and just, you want just the tiniest little hiss when the cork comes out. Go. And this producer is completely biodynamic and certified organic. Just light and refreshing, perfect with all of our light and refreshing adornments. Thank you so much for tuning in to this springtime holiday episode. I love getting to share a little bit of my family's traditions with you. And however you and your loved ones choose to celebrate this wonderful springtime, these dishes can bring vibrancy and a lot of yumminess. In these uncertain times, you can certainly make time for quarantine cooking. Remember, wash your hands and write your loved ones. Kissik! Cheers!
I took a look